Too much backstory? No such thing. It just doesn't exist. I mean, give as much as you want, as much as you have to give. There will be readers, there will be an audience hungry for it. Yeah, you're going to filter out some people who don't care. But if you have a lot, provide it, give that depth to your characters. The reason there's characters without depth is because that's all there was to them. That's all that people's minds were able to come up with for them. It was meant to be for that reason. But if you have this character that you're coming up with and you're just feeling, oh, there's too much to them. I can keep going at this for a lifetime. It's pretty valuable right there. Don't get discouraged and think you have to cut stuff out. No, I mean, if you're feeling inspired, that's a wonderful thing for your character, for your audience, for your readers. They're going to love you for that. There is always a people who want to dig in to characters because yes, it's fictional. Yes, it's not real in a sense, but it was created by a real person. So therefore it represents something of real significance pertaining to the world that we see around us, that we can touch, feel, hear, see directly in our eyes, directly in our senses. Yes, it exists in a portion of our imagination, in something that we can't exactly physically touch, but it's real. Backstory is important. It says something about the world, and it's very fun. It's interesting to read on the backstories of characters from stuff that you like. So if there's a character that you're creating, by all means, go crazy at it. Go all out on it. You don't want to sell yourself short. You don't want to provide for the audience something that is less than what it could have been. And again, backstory doesn't mean you always have to just let it all out on the first page, in the first chapter, on the first book if it's a series. Like, just develop it in your head. Write a notebook, like fill up a notebook or just a page of everything about this character, everything about this story in particular. Maybe it'll become a prequel. Maybe it'll become something that is can be relatable, some kind of consistency, something that's essential to the rest of the story. Something that connects it as a whole and harmonizes it. And harmony is always great in writing, and it's not always something you do intentionally. It's more of a result of when you're doing the right things. And that's why it becomes pleasing to read, pleasing to hear if you're listening to the audiobook of it, pleasing to be adapted if it becomes a television show, or if it is a television show or film already, which is just another form of entertainment. It's a form of media. It's a form of conveying big ideas. You can blend these two. You can blend your message into entertainment. Again, you may have a very serious topic, but convey it in an entertaining way and interweave it in. That's a very powerful way to communicate this idea, this feeling that you have, that you want others to know, not just to shout it at them directly through, a philosophical treatise on this kind of stuff. But no, just tell a good story, because that's what it's all about with your writing. That's what people want to hear. It's entertaining to hear backstory. People want to know what was the motivation behind this. Why did they do that? Because it's something they're not able to come up with on their own. It's something they're not doing on their own. When you're reading, you're not writing. It comes with the territory. If you're watching a TV show, you're not making a TV show at the same time. It's in the background. I don't know if it's in the production crew background, but you know what I mean. It's a task that takes up something. It takes up your time. It takes up your focus, your intentionality, your agency as a person, as a human being. You are activating your own free will when you're reading, when you're watching something. And if you're forced to watch something, you can tune your mind out. It's not, if you're reading something, you can be reading words and not comprehending them. You can be hearing words and not really hearing them. But if you're making a choice, you want the best, you want as good as it can be, as good as it should have been. So your reader will know if you cut them short of this character that otherwise would have had this amazing backstory, this setting that otherwise would have had all this history to it. Create that history if you want to. Sometimes you won't want to, in which case don't feel pressured either, which is what I'm saying. It's a choice. It's something you get to decide as a writer. Things that are fun, things that you get to kind of experience them for yourself. Hearing someone talk about something is cool, but to do it on your own, that's something you can have with writing. You can create that for your worlds. And again, I'm going to emphasize here, it may feel pointless. It may feel stupid sometimes. Am I building all this backstory I wanted, but you may come to these places like, why am I doing this if it's not real? It's just, it's a fake, it's a false world. What am I really creating here? What am I really doing here? And what you're doing is telling a story that has a connection to real life, whatever you may think that is, whatever that may look like. And real life is very, obviously inherently it's palpable. And when you build bridges between your story and that, I'm telling you, people learn about themselves through the backstory of characters, through the backstory of narratives and stuff like that, and settings, and where, like, let's say where the town came from, where the city came from, where their family came from, that kind of stuff. It teaches the reader about themselves. It teaches you about yourself. So you'd also be letting go of an opportunity to learn about you if you decided not to include that backstory. And why would you do that? There's really no reason not to. Usually it's just because you feel that it's too much. There's no such thing as too much. What if you want to write another book after? You might continue it. Every book you write might just be another separate entity, which is perfectly fine. But I'm just saying, you want to not stop yourself. The inspiration, motivation, that kind of stuff, it flows to you, and it sometimes there's a deluge of it. It's just, it overwhelms you, and you don't really know how to deal with it. Sometimes you just want to build up a dam. You just want to stop the water from flowing. You want to stop the inspiration from flowing because it's too much. You're like, okay, I'll only take this much, but it was there waiting for you to take, to save, to use, to utilize. Again, you're not going to use it all at once. The backstory is not all going to come out just in an immediate moment, but it's going to be used. It's going to become relevant. It's going to be existing in a portion of your story. So let it flow through. Let the river run through your book, your short story. It could be a poem. It could be, again, I talk about writing. You could be writing for a television show. You can be screenwriting. I want you to not ever think that there's such thing as too much backstory, because there's not. What is there to lose? There's everything to gain when you get it down, when you develop it further and further and further. Even if you don't bring it up, even if it never comes out, it came from somewhere. You left these spaces, these gaps that the reader can then fill in with their minds on their own. And guess what? The reader feels smart when they do that. The audience feels great. Not smart like, oh, good, look at them, they're a gold star for them, but like they feel good about themselves. That's why they like to watch it. That's why they like to read it, because they're taking a part in it. They're actively participating in a very small part. You did the legwork. You wrote the story. You made it for them. But for them, they get to feel a part. They get to make it their own, because you cannot possibly include every piece of a character within the story. No, they're existing within that world, and you kind of have to sometimes guess certain things. If you're reading something with someone, like you're reading in the same book, you might ask questions. You might have discussions about it, like, oh, so why this? Why do you think that? I don't know. Why do you think that? I think because of this, and well, I think because of that. Maybe it's because of that. And it's like, this wasn't real, it was fictional, but yet something is still gained from talking about it. And that's accomplished when you have mentally this foundation. Sometimes it's too much to even write down. You can't even always elaborate on it. It's too much. But guess what? It all comes from that same place. And that's felt, that's perceived, that's known. And that makes a difference in how you write and what you're writing. So always remember, again, there's no such thing as too much backstory. Who says you even have to use it all? Just be aware of it. Just be conscious of it. That's valuable. You're providing something. You're creating something that otherwise didn't exist before. And it just adds more to the volumetric mass, to the intensity of whatever it is you have written. And it adds a certain air of credibility to it, a certain air of reality to it, where it's like I'm walking into a portrait, I'm walking into a painting, into a book. Between the pages, between the words and the lines, I am entering into your reality that you've created as a reader of you. And readers will do that. You've done that before with books. You've done that before with series and television shows. So creating that experience, it's a lot of fun too. It's something you'll enjoy. I really think it could be a day. You don't want to spend your entire lifetime on this, because you want to write something too. You don't just want to be thinking about it for life as well. But definitely don't be afraid to spend some time coming up with the backstory. Flesh it out as much as you want. Let it just roam and go crazy free. Don't set like a time timer on it, just until it feels right. Like, okay, that's enough backstory. Anything else I come up with feels forced. The second you hit that, the second it feels like, okay, now this doesn't feel authentic. I'm just doing this for the sake of it. That's when you need to stop and take a break. Maybe move on to something else, another character, another part of your story. Or you've said enough. There's enough done. Maybe only one character needs to have depth to them, right? The rest are just kind of floating by, which is how some people live and experience the world. They're the ones who have depth, and the way everyone around them is just kind of floating by. And it doesn't mean they really think that, but that's just kind of how they experience things. So not everyone in your story needs to, but if they do, you're widening the window into real life. It's like creating a reflection. You're creating a map of what life looks like for people and what it can look like for everyone who reads and experiences what you've created, the work that you've made. So backstory is a wonderful tool. It's limitless, and you can take as the reins for it. You can take helm the ship of it, take control of it, and you'll find that what it does for your writing is something pretty amazing. Check out How to Write a Book in 30 Days, the 10-part guide I have on my website, completely free, and let it haunt your inbox and remind you to write your book. There's nothing stopping you, nothing standing in your way. So I'll see you. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you around.